Hey everyone, if you're the parent of a special needs child, newborn up to age 3, you won't want to miss today's episode. We're talking all about early intervention. Who qualifies, what it's all about, why it's so important, who pays the bill, and how you can get your child started right away. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, it's Joanne from This Uncommon Journey, where we help special needs families find a path forward every single day. And on this channel, we share tips and tools and all sorts of information on everything from IEPs to early intervention to even self-care for the caretakers. We even tackle some of the more tougher subjects, things like aggressive behavior, caring for a medically fragile child, and even guardianship. For those of you who don't know, I'm also mom to my own special warrior. That's Jo. So if you're new here, why not consider subscribing by hitting the notification button below? I'm glad you're here. Welcome to This Uncommon Journey. Today it's all about early intervention, and we're tackling 5 important questions and the answers that you need to know for any parent that has a special needs child, newborn up to age 3. And stick around for the end of the video because I got some really good resources that you won't want to miss. Let's get started. Okay, so question number 1. What exactly is early intervention? Well, they're important, actually really important supports and services for young children age newborn up to just under the age of 3 who have diagnosed conditions and developmental delays. And those services could include things like occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, but they can also include some more specialized therapies as well, things like respiratory therapy or nutritional counseling or feeding therapy as well. Okay, so question number 2, who qualifies for early intervention? Well, in those situations where there's a diagnosed condition right after birth or soon after birth for something like cerebral palsy or Down syndrome, where we know that there's a greater risk of a developmental delay, those children will qualify for early intervention. But there's other specialized situations and conditions that parents should be aware of. If there was a premature birth or a low birth weight, or if the child had surgery soon after birth or a heart issue or something like that, studies show that those children are also at greater risk for developmental delays as well and would for sure benefit from early intervention services. Keep in mind that other children can qualify as well. So children don't need to have those specialized conditions or situations to be eligible for early intervention. If there's a concern about how a child is developing physically or socially and emotionally, or how their fine motor skills are developing, or how their communication is developing, if there seems to be something off or if there seems to be a delay, those children could qualify for early intervention services as well. So while it is true that every child develops differently and at different rates, the actual reality is that within a given time frame, children should be meeting certain milestones. They should be babbling and grasping and holding objects and rolling over and holding their neck up and sitting up all by certain ages or within a reasonable time frame of those ages. And if you click on the link below, it's going to take you to my website, and there's a great tracker from the CDC that helps you monitor and look out for what those milestones actually are. The good news is that you don't have to be doing these evaluations completely by yourself. As part of your child's well checkup, the 3-month, the 6-month, 9-month, and those year and 18-month visits, aside from vaccinations and aside from the general wellness check with hearing and eyes and everything that your pediatrician is doing, they should also be conducting a monitoring of how your child is developing overall. And aside from assessing that themselves, they should be asking you questions and letting you give feedback in terms of what you're seeing about what your child is doing and at what time frame those things are starting, things like grasping and things like sitting up and rolling and all that as well. The thing to keep an eye out for, and this is just a word of caution because this is something that I experienced. After Joe was born, he had a lot of medical things going on, and yes, I was taking him to the doctor, and yes, there was some concern. But I think for myself, because Joe wasn't sleeping, I wasn't sleeping, There was a lot of medical issues, like I said, going on, a lot of chaos at that time. I wasn't noticing so much or wasn't thinking so much about these milestones. So it was really helpful that my doctor kind of pulled me back into those type of discussions. Something else to consider is see what other family, like your mother or your spouse or an aunt or uncle or is also saying. If they have any concerns about what they're seeing, have a further discussion with your pediatrician about it. I think we're so busy as new moms with newborn children, and if you're working full-time or going back to work, there's a lot going on. And with that, there's a tendency, or there could be a tendency, that you're missing some of the markers on this. So again, have those discussions with your pediatrician. Listen to what other loved ones might be saying. Okay, so now we're on to question number 3. Can early intervention really make that big of a difference? Well, the short answer on this is yes, absolutely. In fact, it's a game changer. But I'm going to take you to a longer answer to explain the why. So I think most of us can agree that the brain is an amazing, complex organ. But what most of us don't realize is that during those first few years of life, there's key development going on. In fact, during that time, things called neural circuits, which are the foundation for learning and health or behavior, are really most elastic and most adaptable. And they're really the building block for how children learn and develop. So if the child is receiving little stimulation during that time period between birth and 3 years old, or if something else is causing a blockage between those synapses and circuits from really working properly, the brain is going to make fewer connections and there's going to be delayed learning all around. Early intervention really provides a unique window of opportunity whereby those delays can be identified and then targeted support therapy can be used to help the child get stronger, communicate better, develop better, and it can really help the child play catch up and change the trajectory of your child's developmental path, which is going to help them improve their outcomes over the next few years and throughout their life. Okay, so now we're on to question number 4. Who pays the bill? Well, thanks to the Individuals and Disabilities Education Act, no child who needs these services will be denied these services because of finances. Basically, the way it works is that the federal government provides funds through the state, who then funnels it down to the local level. So you won't have to pay for the evaluation. Sometimes there is a sliding scale for services, but a lot of times private insurance will pick that up as well. So in most cases, you won't have to pay anything out of pocket, but you'll learn more about that once you speak with your service coordinator. And that brings us to our final question, number 5. How do you get the process started? As I mentioned earlier, one of the best ways to get the process started is to speak with your pediatrician about any concerns that you might have regarding your child's development. But you don't need a formal recommendation from a doctor to start the early intervention process. You can contact your local early intervention agency and let them know that you'd like an evaluation. With that evaluation, a coordinator will come to the house and do a more formal assessment and make a determination whether or not that your child is eligible for services. You will need to sign a written consent form to have that evaluation done. If it's determined that your child does need services, even more formal evaluations and observations will take place with specialized therapists. And after that, you'll get kind of a write-up plan with regard to goals and how these services can help your child. So that's it. That's everything right now you need to know about early intervention. But keep an eye out because I'm going to have one-on-one interview with a early intervention service coordinator, so you'll get a more in-depth look about what happens during the intake process and assessment process and everything else you need to know from there on. So until then, be well, and I'll see you soon on this uncommon journey.